What's up, gamers? It's Above, and today I'm bringing you the Hollowed Lair Grandmaster Nightfall guide for Season of the Lost. This is the first time this Nightfall has ever entered the Grandmaster playlist. The strike became famous for the Mindbender's farm prior to sunsetting, and is making waves yet again by bringing us the first ever Scorn champions. In today's video, I'll be covering the best team comp, loadouts, positioning strategies, and spawn manipulation tactics to make this GM a breeze. If you find this guide useful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now let's get into it. Starting with my recommended team comp, I want to make one thing clear. There are several subclasses that can shine in different portions of this Nightfall. For example, Well of Radiance could be great for helping clear ads safely in the plate encounter, but can actually get you killed in the boss room as the Fanatic's arc attack punishes players for standing still. My point being, there's not a perfect team comp for every single situation, but we did find that one Invis Hunter with Omnioculus, one Shadebinder Warlock with Aeon Souls, and one Chaos Reach Warlock with Geomag Stabilizers was by far the most consistent across all encounters. The Omnioculus Hunter allows you to reposition safely against the overwhelming hordes of ads in the tank and boss encounters. Shadebinder is outstanding for suppressing enemies while you're trying to clear them safely, and Chaos Reach can give you quick ad clear in the tank, bridge, and boss encounters. As for weapon loadouts, we're going to have 3 unique setups to make sure every champion and shield type is dealt with. Our first gamer will be using a primary sniper and Le Monarch, our second will be using a primary sniper and Vex Mythoclast, and our third will be using Wither Horde and an Arc Bow. All 3 will be using linear fusions in the heavy slot, as they're one of the most dominant weapons this season. The primary snipers can be substituted for blinding grenade GLs if you need them, but I like snipers for Hollowed Lair to help pick off enemies at range in the tank, plate, and bridge encounters. Le Monarch is great for clearing groups of ads with the poison spread and keeping overloads stunned for extended periods of time. Vex Mythoclast is incredible for ad clear, can cover the solar variation of the chieftains, and will be used to prime bosses and champions with particle deconstruction. Wither Horde will be used to counter the unique GM modifier, Festering Rupture, which causes mini Screeps to spawn after defeating Scorn Stalkers. After killing these enemies, the Screeps will die to the Wither Horde pools immediately after. This weapon also gives you the ability to pre-damage the Fanatic before he tethers you, allowing you to break them more efficiently. Linear fusions will be great for damage throughout this Nightfall when paired with the particle deconstruction debuff from our Vex user, and are extremely ammo efficient because of this as well. As for key armor mods, we used Overload Bow and Unstoppable Fusion to manage champions, particle deconstruction for a 41% debuff on champions and bosses, taking charge, shield break charge, and protective light for a 50% damage resist when our shields were broken, double void resist to avoid getting one shot by the raider snipers, as well as the void grenades that get tossed to you constantly throughout this Nightfall, and linear fusion rifle finders and scavs to take full advantage of the buffed heavy ammo drop rates when using exotic primary weapons. Your Chaos Reach should be running one power preservation mod to generate additional orbs when clearing ads, while your Shadebinder Warlock should be using Resonance Siphon to get 1/3 of their abilities back every time we stun a champion, which means they'll have their turret up at all times. They should also be running Sect of Insight on their Aeon Souls to generate heavy ammo for your fire team when performing finishers. Your Invis Hunter can run Special Finisher, as their super is the least valuable of the 3, but I never really found special ammo to be an issue. Diving right into the Nightfall, as you enter the first room, you'll be met by waves of lurkers, raiders, and screebs that will rush you. So play back on the hill to clear ads and wait for the unstoppable Abomination to peek around the right corner. These dudes have massive health pools, so make sure you're using Vex Mythoclast to prime the Abomination with particle deconstruction before laying into them with your linear fusions. Once clear, peek through the hut and snipe the raiders to your close right, far right, and the 3 raiders to your far left. This gets rid of the one-shot potential in this room and gives you more freedom to take your time clearing ads around the Overload Chieftain. A quick tip that will apply to the entire strike is that if the Overload Chieftain spawns a totem, simply stun it and the existing totems will immediately break. Wither Horde is insanely useful in rooms like this where ads group up in tight areas, and when paired with exotics like Vex and Le Monarch, ad clear was never an issue. The next room can be a bit overwhelming if not handled correctly, so it's important to follow these positioning tips. As you enter, head left and play behind the wall for cover. Throw your nade at the wall of the hut to your right and blow up the explosive barrel as the ads approach it. Once all of the ads are dead, focus on the Fanatic's Chosen. prime it with Vex, and kill it. Once dead, push up to these pipes to spawn the first unstoppable champion. It will walk up to the bridge where the Fanatic's chosen was, giving your team a nice line of sight. Stun him, then clear the adds that rush you, and if you see a sniper in the cubby to your top left, be sure to kill it. Once ready, prime the champ and take it out. Then move up to the bridge to spawn the second unstop, and focus on clearing adds until the abomination shows itself near the exit of the room. Chip down its health, then let it walk up and get a finisher to replenish ammo. Clear the remaining adds, and we're moving on to the spider tank. The entrance to this room is tricky. They funnel you through a tiny door, and you have an unstoppable abomination and overload chieftain staring at you. And the overload chieftain can even make the nearby enemies immune. This is exactly why we have an invis hunter at our disposal. Before aggroing any adds, smoke your team and head towards the right hut for cover, and then re-smoke and head to the back of the room. This encounter is built to funnel you through that tiny doorway, which makes it incredibly difficult to kill the champions, which is why I recommend repositioning like we do here. As long as you don't step on the pressure plate in the center of the room, you can use as much of the arena as you want without spawning the spider tank. From here, you want to kill the raiders as quickly as possible and then focus on clearing the rest of the room. This also gives you plenty of space to work with against the stalkers that drop the mini screebs and cover to fight against the unstop and overload champions. Take out the overload first, then get a finisher on the abomination before stepping on the plate. Once ready, step on the plate, and just before it reaches the bottom, step off. I recommend stepping on and off repeatedly to be extra careful, because if you do this right, the first wave of adds and the unstoppable abominations will spawn in without the spider tank. Dealing with all of this simultaneously is a nightmare, but this method makes this room much easier. As the adds spawn in, pop your Chaos Reach to clear the center of the arena, while the rest of your team focuses on the adds spawning to your top right and left. I recommend throwing a stasis turret to your left, which will allow you to focus on the unstop to your right hand side without any adds rushing you. Once the adds are clear and both unstops are dead, step back on the plate to finish the capture. I recommend that all of you shoot the same leg to avoid over damaging the tank, as it will overlap add spawns. So get it to 2/3 health, let it stand back up, and clear the adds that spawn in, then damage it again and go inside of the bubble to kill it. The explosion that takes place when you do so does not deal enough damage to kill you, so there's nothing to worry about here. This transition area contains one unstoppable champion and is a great place to get a finisher to replenish the heavy ammo spent on the spider tank. As you enter the plate encounter, there will be 2 overload chieftains waiting for you, along with some trash mobs. You'll want to keep them stunned as much as possible to prevent them from summoning totems and making them immune. Take out the first overload from a distance, then weaken the second overload enough so that you can get a finisher to top off on heavy ammo before the encounter begins. This is an encounter where going too quickly can actually be detrimental to your fire team. Add spawns are tied to the plate progression, so going too quickly can leave you overwhelmed by adds. You don't want to progress both plates at the same time, and you don't want to stay on the plates too long either. I like to start with the left plate because it has a nice line of sight on the arena, but both plates work just fine. You'll want just one person stepping on and off the plate to control the pace at which adds spawn in, while your teammates find safe positions around the room to clear adds from. At around 10% capture progress, the first wave of stalkers will spawn in. Witherhorde will be big for handling these, as each stalker that dies will spawn in mini screebs. Once clear, step back on the plate, and at around 50% capture progress, a few more adds will spawn in. Take them out, then step back on the plate to finish the first capture. This will trigger the spawn of a larger wave of adds containing 2 chieftains, 1 arc, and 1 solar. Clear this wave of adds before progressing the second plate, especially because the normal chieftains cannot be stunned as easily to break their totems. Once this room is clear, you can begin capturing the second plate. Similar to the first plate, the first spawn is triggered at around 10% capture progress, but unlike the first plate, these will be the only enemies that spawn until the plate is finished. It is at this point that the Vengeful Hand mini-boss will spawn up alongside some adds. So back up to where you entered, clear the adds, and begin damaging the abomination. There are 2 health gates to be aware of at roughly 80 and 40% health. Each will trigger the spawn of an overload chieftain and a wave of adds. I like to play from the back of the room, as you have a bit more cover to work with, a nice line of sight to kill the ravagers that will rush you, and the mini-boss just sorta stands stands there and doesn't actually attack you. So to recap, as you finish the plates, be aware of the 80 and 40% health gates, take out the overloads if the opportunity presents itself, but they do like to wander behind cover, so don't worry if you can't. Finish off the Vengeful Hand, get finishers on the overloads, and we're moving on. This next area can be a tricky one. There are ads scattered throughout, including raiders that will attempt to snipe you. There is also an overload chieftain that often is visible from where you enter. Try to kill it from afar, and once dead, clear the rest of the area before pushing up to the bridge. I recommend popping your Chaos Reach to clear it, while your teammates focus on the two raiders at the back, right, and left-hand sides immediately, as they are both incredibly dangerous. Most of the ads should be dead at this point, with just the two unstoppable champions remaining. Get finishers on these to stock up on ammo, and we're moving on to the boss encounter. There are 3 key tips I want to note with the Fanatic. The first is that you do not want to burn the boss's health bar. Similar to the plate encounter, you can manipulate ad spawns based on how much progress you make, or in this case, the amount of damage we're doing. Since we can't burn this boss due to his various immune phases, we're going to take it slow and steady. Ad spawns and tethers are triggered at increments of roughly 10% on the Fanatic's health bar. The second tip is that the Fanatic's mechanics actually ramp up over time and are triggered by each third of his health bar. The first phase limits him to having just 1 arc storm on the ground at any given time, and the boss will not tether you during this phase at all. The second phase still limits him to just 1 arc storm, but he will also tether your fire team twice. The third phase will also contain 2 tethers, but the Fanatic is no longer limited to just 1 arc storm on the ground at any given time. The third and final tip is that if you're walking backwards as the boss tether begins, it significantly slows the rate at which you'll be pulled towards the boss. If the tether isn't breaking, as is a common bug in this strike, pop your super and it will instantly break the tether, allowing you to escape safely. As we dive into the boss fight, begin by damaging the boss and dedicate just 1 person to do so to make sure you don't overdamage. Ads will spawn on the right at 90% health, the left at 80% health, and the boss will go immune at 70% health. You want to alternate dealing damage and clearing ads. You do not want to overdamage because it will result in ads spawning on all sides of you while also trying to evade the arc storms of the boss. This can lead to silly wipes, so for each health gate, simply take it slow. When the boss goes immune, the first ad clear portion of the Nightfall begins. Chaos Reach does a fantastic job clearing ads, while the Stasis Turret keeps ads suppressed. This phase will also spawn an Overload Chieftain that you can leave alive and bait around the room while collecting ammo, and finish it to restock on heavy. Once the final ad dies, the Fanatic will return for phase 2. The boss will tether you at 60% and spawn ads to your left after just 1 to 2% more damage. The boss will then tether you again at 50% and spawn ads to your right after 1 to 2% more damage yet again. It's at these 2 middle phases that I recommend doing chip damage with your primary weapons to avoid getting overlapping tethers and enemy spawns. The boss will go immune at 40% health, at which time the next ad clear phase begins. Once again, use your supers to clear the area and keep an eye out for the unstoppable abomination that spawns in. You can bait the unstop around the room as you collect ammo similar to the previous phase and can finish it to top off on heavy ammo for the rest of the fight. This will start the third and final boss phase. Ads will spawn on the right at 33% health, you'll be tethered at 30% health, and ads will spawn on your left shortly after that. You'll be tethered one last time at 20% health, and it is at this point that you want to burn the remaining health bar, making the Hollowed Lair Grandmaster Nightfall a GG. If you found this guide useful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. I also stream live on Twitch over at twitch.tv/above, so feel free to swing on by the stream. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!